Yeah, we've had a struggle. We had a struggle last night, but we're here this morning, and everybody's okay, and everybody's healthy, so that's all that matters. Things can be replaced. They're hard, too, but sometimes we have to just go on. We're going to go in Psalms 26. We're going to read all 12 verses, and they're short. And the title of my devotional is, we had Be Prepared and Be Aware. And today I had Be Protected, especially after last night with our experience with our car. So this is Psalms 26, and I'm going to just go ahead and read it all, and then we're going to kind of divide it up. So Psalms 26, and it's a prayer for protection, a psalm of David. Vindicate me, O Lord, for I have walked in my integrity, and I have trusted in the Lord without wavering. Examine me, O Lord, and try me. Test my mind and my heart, for thy loving kindness is before my eyes, and I have walked in thy truth. I do not sit with deceitful men, nor will I go with pretenders. I hate the assembly of evildoers, and I will not sit with the wicked. I shall wash my hands in innocence, and I will go about thine altar, O Lord, that I may proclaim with the voice of thanksgiving and declare all thy wonders. O Lord, I love the habitation of thy house and the place where thy glory dwells. Do not take my soul away along with sinners, nor my life with men of bloodshed, in whose hands is a wicked scheme and whose right hand is full of bribes. But as for me, I shall walk in my integrity. Redeem me and be gracious to me. My foot stands on a level place. In the congregations I shall bless the Lord. So Psalms 26 is a brief 12 verses. It's a little more than we normally talk about, but it's a delightful psalm. It's kind of in a poetic form in which the author petitions God for protection from some threatening deadly force. And after last night, I'm sure we were all petitioning in our car situation, because a deadly force doesn't mean actually people. It can be things coming at you. And so in this particular case, he argues his plea to the Lord in the hope of a favorable response in his prayer. What is the flow of the petitioner's argument to his Creator? So the text. Psalms 26 likely was written in the time of crisis in David's life. Various possibilities have been suggested. Maybe it was Saul's persecution of him, Absalom's rebellion, some political crisis. Nothing can be determined for certain. Some suggest it is a prayer of a forgiven sinner who has been treated wrongfully. The psalm can be described as a prayer for divine examination in the view of danger. And boy, last night when we were in the middle of that road, we definitely understood the value. Sometimes we forget what danger really is. So the narrative falls into three natural divisions. First, there is, in verses 2 and 3, there's a proclamation of the author's integrity, our integrity. Second is the evidence to support his claim is introduced in verses 3 through 8. And third, there's a plea. We had a plea for Jehovah's mercy, 9 through 12. So it attributes to the composition of David, and in fact, 73 of the 150 Psalms are, in one way or another, connected to Israel's finest, David, his finest king. So let's look at the first one, the affirmation of integrity. I hope I stand before you today with integrity. I mean, that's what he's talking about. Verses 1 through 2, the psalmist calls upon Jehovah to judge him, particularly as he stands in contrast to certain wicked men who are deserving to divine wrath. How many times do we go in our daily lives and we know that there are people that we think need a divine wrath? They need to get something done with them. He does not claim perfection. I don't claim perfection. I'm just walking the best that I can. But he does contend that he has walked in integrity. He contrasts his life with those who are oppressing him. And believe me, on a daily basis, we have people and situations that give us oppression. He is not absolute by the holiness of God. The original word rendered integrity suggests the idea of completeness. We are complete. He professes to have a sincere heart in serving his master. It's not because I want to or have to, it's because I want to. So he has an integrity of a sincere heart in serving his maker. and a love for the Lord always has been without the fabric of his soul. So David affirms that he has trusted in Jehovah without wavering. Sometimes in our lives we do waver, we get frustrated. But he said he's without wavering. He may suggest he had remained relatively steadfast, or it could indicate his conviction that as long as he maintains confidence in the Lord, his course in life would remain stable. When we remain stable, we're feeling like we're on our course. We think things should be stable. Sometimes they don't. They don't always go that way. So unfortunately in verse 1 he's saying, hey, I'm walking in integrity. I'm stable. So let's look at the second verse. The psalmist is not arrogant in that he feels he could never be weak or involved in sin. He's not saying I can't fall. He says, hence, with an honest heart, he pleads for God, examine me. Put me under a divine microscope, so to speak. Prove me. Put me to the test, for example, perhaps as you did Abraham and the nation of Israel. He does not ask that the Lord cut him any slack. He implores Jehovah to try his heart. The term mind would reference the reasoning faculty. David believes he will pass the test both emotionally and intelligently. I don't know. David's saying, hey, examine me, try me. We could get trials every day we go through. So the next step is evidence introduced in verses 3 through 8. Much as Job once did, David will attempt to reinforce the case of his integrity with evidence. Just like a lawyer, we're going to support the evidence. We're going to go before the judge. This is what I'm doing. This is why I want you to hear my prayer. First, there is the affirmation that God will do right by him, by his word. For the writer has observed many examples of his Creator's loving kindness. Jehovah is not a monstrous fiend, even ever seeking to condemn. He genuinely loves us. That's why he sent Jesus to die on the cross for us. He gave us a way out. He has the demonstration of that ultimately will be gloriously revealed in the gift of his Son as a sacrifice for sin. He affirms he has walked in the truth, unlike which men are accountable. He had not been the companion of liars or hypocrites. He hadn't been in that presence. In fact, he abhors those who assemble to plan wickedness. You ever know anybody who plans wickedness? You just know they're planning wickedness. You can feel it. You know that they're planning that. So he was describing that. So we find that there's a lot of people who today are planning some wickedness against us. So unlike he walked in and persuade as the way of life in the Lord's truth. He had not been the companion of liars and hypocrites. He abhors anything like that. As a Levitical priest ceremonially washed before serving at Jehovah's sacred altar, even so David symbolically washes his hands in innocence. He will devote himself to purity and encircle, perhaps embrace the altar of God. The use of altar probably reflects a resolution to worship Almighty God. He has described two sides of the same coin, reputing evil and embracing truth. Which should we do? He's telling he desires to worship his God genuinely. The sweet psalmist of Israel recognizes a truth of which many today are oblivious. Namely, there's a relationship between one desire to be innocent before God and whether or not they should listen to the voice of thanksgiving. And how many times people go to church or go to their worship service, they have no intention of doing anything of asking forgiveness. They're there for the social part. So he said he's innocent before God, whether or not he will listen to the voice of thanksgiving. It is a tragedy of unbelievable magnitude that so many people see no connection between their worship and the way they live on a regular basis. I think that if people were to, we have all these reality shows, and I'm guilty. I watch them. They walk around with a camera, and they're following these people, and we just get a little glimpse of their life on camera. And when I watch those, I think, if a camera was following me around all day, I think I'd be okay. But I just don't know. It's kind of like having a little devil, a little angel over here, but you got your camera. So I was kind of thinking about that on those shows, and I thought, well, if cameras follow me around, I don't know. They might get a surprise. I don't know. But he says he has integrity, and Lord, hear my prayer. So the Lord's wondrous works would encompass the mysteries of the initial creation as reflected in the cosmos, the working of a divine providence in the lives of his people, and the redemption provided for those submissive to his will. in a burst of praise. David proclaims that he loves the habitation wherein the glory of God abides. He says, I love it. An oblivious allusion to the Holy of Holies in the tabernacle. Ultimately, the Lord's glory would be manifested in the tabernacle of his Son's body, which he's speaking of Jesus Christ. Then in verses 9 through 12, help me, Lord. And last night I was thinking in my head, help me, Lord. Get my car going, get these wheels going, get us out of the road. But isn't that our natural reaction? Help me, Lord. Automatic, help me, Lord. But sometimes I often wonder that people that aren't living right, do they say, help me, Lord? Probably in a time of crisis, I imagine they do. And speaking of reality shows, we were watching Deadliest Roads show, and a guy said that one of the gentlemen got up and got out, and he says, well, before we go on this, we're going to pray to Jesus. It was a big statue. And the guy said, I don't believe in that stuff. I don't believe in that stuff. So the other guy said, well, now you better. So they get up, he says, I'd rather pray to you than I would pray to Jesus. So they got on the road and they got down to this real tight, it was way down there, thousands of feet down. And the guy said, you know what, I think I should have said one of those prayers before we left. And that's kind of how we get sometimes. We're like, I'm not going to, So you got to kind of check yourself. So it said, help me, Lord. So in verses 9 through 12, it says, this remarkable psalm concludes with a prayer. David begs that when the gathering, figuratively the harvest time comes, the appointment of judgment, either in death or that ultimate judgment, may his soul be not gathered in the same company with the wicked. I would think how sad it would be to be with what we're saying, wicked. And we don't even have any idea how bad things really are. We see a little glimpse of it through our unfortunate watching of television, radio, and things we see every day, but we don't have any idea how wicked actually people's minds and things that they're consorting to do. The evil prophet Balaam once pathetically petitioned, let me die the death of the righteous, and let my last end be like his. How stupid is the modern skeptic who boasts that he will split hell wide open and love every moment of it. Oh man. He says, yeah, I want to go down to hell, I want to be with my friends. There are no friends in hell. None. The shepherd poet was deadly serious about wanting to be in the company of the righteous, not the wicked, and that should be our goal. Those estranged from God will have earned their tortured destiny. You earned it. That's where you're going. They are violent, they are corrupt, their hands drip blood and bulge with wickedness. Their right hand, clutching bribes, had become a wrong hand, just as in this poem had initially affirmed that its author had walked in integrity. Even so, his promises that he will continue to walk in a life of consecration. And the Lord on his part will redeem him and extend mercy to him. It's not too late. As long as we're breathing, it's not too late. That's what he's saying. The term redeem is a request to be delivered from the fate of the ungodly who are characterized in this previous verse. With a beautiful metaphor, David resolutely declares that his foot stands firm on level ground. And I like that song, I'm standing on holy ground. I'm level. I'm planted. He is not perched on a torturous and treacherous terrain of the ungodly that leads to the abyss of separation from God. We don't hear a lot about what happens when we're not right in living. We don't hear about that anymore. We don't hear about hell. But there's a place, and that's where they're going to assemble. And we're not going to split hell wide open. And it's not going to be fun. And we're not going to have parties down there. So it says this, they will be in the anguish of the doomed. In the assemblies of the righteous, he will continue to bless Jehovah. And that's kind of a key verse. Righteous will continually bless Jehovah. So in conclusion, this delightful psalm thrillingly reveals a quality of the state of mind that should characterize each and every one of us. It reflects the humble, yet confident peace that resides with the honest soul who is seriously attempting to walk with his Redeemer. The devout are open to divine examination so that integrity of conscience will flavor each day. Integrity. That word integrity. This disposition despises evil and embraces godliness. It worships Jehovah and happily anticipates a closer walk with the Lord at the consummation of earthly affairs. This song in principle spans the ages. It knows no time, instructing and blessing the people of God. So in summing that up, it was prayer for protection. And we don't realize how close, the time that the Lord is coming back, but how close that there's a fine line between heaven and hell. And are we walking in it, and what is our integrity telling us? And what are we doing about it? So this morning, that's what I had to bring to you, and how ironic that it was a prayer for protection. We had a little stumbling last night with our car, but we learned how really fragile life is, and you could be gone in a moment's notice.